And this is truly a global forum. The next one will be in Dubai on the 13th and 14th of December, Dynamic Alliances. So there are more details on our website about that. So we are moving from our last session on geopolitics to taxation. And governments are embracing technology to better connect with taxpayers as well as make complying with regulations easier. We also know that after spending billions on COVID-related relief, governments need to increase the tax base. So how can technology help them achieve this goal? Very pleased now to be joined by the Chief Digital and Information Officer at HMRC, Daljit Rehal. It's not often I get to be on stage with the tax man. Thank you for coming. We're also joining us digitally. We've got the former Finance Secretary, Government of India, Dr. Ajay Bhushan Pandey. Dr. Ajay, nice to see you. How are you?
Yeah, very fine. Thank you. Thank you.
We've also joined digitally by the Vice President, Infosys, Venkat Narayan. How are you today, sir?
I'm great, thank you.
And we've got the leader in global delivery services for tax at EY, Ashu Rathor. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Dr. Ajay, let's start with you. You have been at the helm of India's tax system, and it's recently undergone significant changes, especially in the context of the digitalization of the infrastructure and services. So tell me what some of the significant changes that you saw were.
Yeah. So first of all, I am very thankful for this for the India Global Forum UK to have panel discussion. About India's recent tax journey. During the last years, India has undergone a major digital transformation in the country. And what we have to see, along with this use of technology in tax system, we have to see that what India has done in the last 6 years, uh, in terms of a digitalization and formalization of economy, and what impact it has had on the entire the tax or the tax system or the convenience to the taxpayer. I will list 5 items to this. One is Aadhaar. During the last 5 6 years, India has been able to give to more than 1.3 billion people a biometric-based unique digital identity to every resident, 1.3 billion people. Secondly, the entire JAM platform, another Aadhaar and mobile platform. Under this platform, using Aadhaar, more than 450 bank accounts have been opened. Those were people completely unbanked, outside the formal system, and then of course they will be outside the taxation system as well. So the bank accounts will be open. More than 1 billion mobile to this JAM platform, and then the third most important platform which India has built again during the last the 4 years. In fact, the Venkat has been my co-panelist Venkat has been my colleague in that exercise. This GSTN, Goods and Services Tax Network. Now, in India, we have more than 5 states and union territories. All of them, the GST is a subject that jointly by the federal government and then the state governments. All the entire GST platform is run jointly by the central government and then the state government, and more than 10 million people file returns every month. And this is the kind of an exercise, not only the filing the returns, they are also generating their invoices online, so that in future, perhaps there may not be any need to file a separate returns as well. The returns can be generated out of the invoice. The invoices are getting generated on the platform itself. And then the fourth platform is the direct tax platform. In the direct tax, what has been done using the technology is that the government has been getting the information now from the various sources, be it investment in the real estate, be it investment in the stock market or the mutual fund, or any large transaction. including the GST turnover or the customs turnover, all these informations are getting assimilated at one place, and then and through the data sharing between the customs, the GST, the income tax, and the banks, and doing the data analytics and the artificial intelligence today, the information asymmetry is being reduced to minimum, and that is what the changing the entire landscape today. In fact, what we see here is, I was going through some figures which have come out very recently. In the first half of this year, the financial year, the tax collection is 27% more than what it was in the pre-pandemic level, that was in the financial year 1920. If you compare with the last year it is 74% more revenue as far as the direct tax is concerned. And if you compare with this pre-pandemic level, the total collection is has increased by more than 27%. If you compare that against the GDP growth, the GDP, in terms of GDP, we are barely touching the pre-pandemic level of 1920. And whereas the tax collection is the direct tax collection is 27% more than that. How has this happened? Now, even for the GST, indirect tax, if you go by the trend this year, I'm pretty sure that in this current financial year, the GST collection will be at least 25% more than the pre-pandemic, the pre-pandemic figures. So in fact, all these things, because of the various platforms, the formalizations being brought through the digital reforms, and all these platforms that I have just mentioned, Aadhaar, JAM, the GSTN, and then the direct tax, all together have now contributed. In addition to that, I must say that even for the convenience of the taxpayers, the department has introduced this faceless assessment for the first time. In fact, earlier the jurisdiction officer used to do the assessment, and this practice was prevalent since 1860. The Sir James William was the first. You would say that kind of a finance minister, because he presented the first Indian budget in the year 1860, and this was the kind of an income tax which was that jurisdiction-based assessment was prevalent since then. But in 2020, in the last year, 2020, we changed to this completely random faceless assessment, where the taxpayer does not have to actually have any face-to-face interaction with the tax officer. If any scrutiny has to be done, he can file his reply online, and that case can get assigned to any tax officer in the entire country. So there is the entire this jurisdiction and other thing has been completely done away with. Now the entire the tax system is on the cloud, and therefore it has become faceless. So I think these are the reforms actually are helping the taxpayers, providing great amount of convenience, bringing a lot of transparency, and at the same time giving this massive increase in revenue, even during this COVID, the pandemic period, when the every other sector is still struggling to, get over the effect of the pandemics. But here, the growth of around 25%. This is something, this is something which is quite substantial.
Fascinating. Thank you. So tax collection 27% higher than pre-pandemic levels. So Daljit, let's move to you. How have you been digitalizing our tax system as well?
Yeah, our tax system in the UK here has been digital for several years now, and we're on a journey to continually make it more digital. Digital challenges us because it's never a static thing, it's a dynamic thing. People start thinking digitally, or started thinking what digital was, several years ago, thinking it was all about a website. Most consumers moved on from that. They started using WhatsApp. Then we have third-party software and agents demanding APIs so that they can, use the personal accounting software in their businesses to directly interact with us.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah, so we're just on a continuous journey to ever catch up with where the technology is taking us. One of the big highlights for us in the pandemic has been the speed at which HMRC has had to react to implement all of the sort of chancellor schemes to keep the country going, our digital platforms allowed us to do that with agility, whereas in the past those things would have taken a lot longer. At the same time, we've also had to deal with exiting from the European Union and putting all the new customs systems in and the border controls, which is all part of the tax platform. We do, approximately 95% of self-assessment is done online, and a further about 60% of all tax credits are also done online. We've got several million customers all online. Where we are now is on our journey. How do we take advantage of becoming cloud native and utilizing the sort of capabilities and the tooling that the cloud offers us? In addition to that, how do we tap into citizen coding? Do we do that for our internal users to start writing applications? Do we open it up for actual citizens to do it and accountants and firms to write the interfaces into the taxation system? How do we take advantage of that? How do we then utilize our data, which has to be highly secure for obvious reasons, but responsibly do a better job of analytics using the capabilities now available that a few years ago would have just been cost prohibitive. So pretty much all of the artificial intelligence libraries that you can imagine are all there on open source, and the talent is coming through. The young graduates and apprentices, and in many cases several other people who've got interest in technology have been keeping up with that. So how do we take advantage of all that? How do we go to the next stage in the digital evolution and start thinking about decentralization, distributed ledgers, and incorporating that thinking into making the tax system more digital, more efficient, and easier to use for the public?
Thank you. So let's bring in the Infosys as now. Venkat, now that you've heard the public sector leaders talk about improvements they've made, how do you think technology can help raise revenues and serve taxpayers better?
Yeah. So I was fortunate to be part of two of the initiatives that Dr. Ajay Bhushan Pandey talked about. 2 out of the 5, I was kind of involved in that journey as well.
Which two
So
were
in
those?
terms of how the direct tax and the GST, based on that experience, in terms of how to leverage technology, I would break it down into 3 unique dimensions. They're kind of interrelated. I'll connect them up a little later, but in my opinion, there are 3 dimensions which technology brings into taxation. One is the data analytics part. The second is user experience. And the third part is building an ecosystem of software providers. So I'll touch upon each of these in briefly. Data analytics and taxation is nothing new. We've been using analytics for quite some time. We started off with largely looking for anomalies in the return data, inconsistencies or anomalies, and typical techniques like evaluating financial ratios and things which don't fit into a certain limits or a tolerance, and that gets flagged for tax evasion. But there's been a paradigm shift in the use of analytics. One Dr. Ajay Pandey earlier referred to. First is bringing in more information. Instead of restricting analytics to the information that you already have, correlating information across, instead of just looking for anomalies, but you're now looking at correlating information with other sources of data. The other sources of data could be other financial information available within the government network, like, for example, comparing the direct tax and the indirect tax, and what you get reported in your corporate returns and things like that. But even outside of the government regime, right? Bringing an ecosystem of the banks and the employers, bringing their data in, or mutual funds, stock exchange, or real estate, bringing all that data in and correlate that gives a much more comprehensive view of what the taxpayer has been up to. And there is one additional benefit not immediately visible right now in bringing all of this data together, which I'll touch upon briefly in a minute. So that's the first area, the data analytics. There's a lot more to be done. We've just started bringing information together, and it started to yield dividends, but there's a lot more to be done there. The second area is user experience. You earlier talked about expanding the taxpayer base, and one of the issues with along with the expanding taxpayer base, you also want to, curtail the tax evasion. So for which one of the strategies has been ask more information, right? So the forms have started growing, and it is becoming larger and larger because you want more information about the taxpayer before you can make a judgment. But that has a flip side as well. The more larger the form, the more the information that you ask, it is more intimidating. No matter how much you simplify the process policies, it's still intimidating. The fear is real. And how you can alleviate that fear is to get away and transform the whole experience of the taxpayer. So the experience of a taxpayer who is going out to an Amazon or a Flipkart to buy something versus filling his tax is completely different. And we need to ask ourselves why it has to be so different, right? Why can't it be as simple as buying something on Amazon? So what essentially we are talking about is the taxation system traditionally has been form-based. There is a certain form, a particular number, which is applicable to you. You need to fill out those fields, and you need to know what to fill out because you need to then start studying all the rules. A paradigm shift here is to get away from the form-based and move to a wizard-based approach. A wizard-based approach doesn't expect you to know the rules or what to fill, or even choose which form to fill. So essentially ask a series of questions which are simple enough for the taxpayer to answer. And I choose the form for you. Even while filling the form, I'm going to get to the data by asking you specific questions. So if you look at most of the tax forms today, for any individual taxpayer, only a little more than 50–60% of the fields are applicable. Almost half the form is just there to intimidate you. So we can get rid of that, the fear part, by showing only those portions which are relevant. The second part of technology in user experience is the concept of pre-fill. So this is again deriving from the benefit of bringing together data from various systems, various information together. Is one thing that you can do is you don't have to fill in the form. The form can be pre-filled, like Dr. Ajay Bhushan said yesterday earlier. There will be a time where you don't have to fill a return. Just go there and say, yes, I verify this. This is my return, and the system generates a return. I say, I verify this, and I'm okay. So that's where we are getting at, and essentially transform the entire user experience. Now that brings me to the third pillar, which no matter what you do, how much you simplify the user experience, it's almost impossible for the government agencies or the government built systems to cater to all the needs of the taxpayers. And that's where it becomes very important to build an entire ecosystem where you're not restricted to use the software. You don't have to transform your data from your accounting package to the taxation package. It gets built in. So essentially you start building out your entire taxation system as a platform, as a set of APIs, as Mr. Daljit referred to as earlier, that we build it out as an ecosystem, we build it out as a platform, expose APIs. So the use of the government provided software becomes less, and the ecosystem evolves to cater to specific needs of the taxpayers. So for example, a tax return of a banking firm might be completely different from a trader, right? So a single size doesn't fit all. So that's the three pillars to you: data analytics, user experience redesign, and the third part is the building the ecosystem.
Perfect. We'll come back to you in a minute. Ashu, I want to come to you with your EY hat on. How have businesses reacted to the recent changes in the tax system? What do they want to see going forward?
Eddie, obviously, I know it's quite clear. The crusade here is to make things simple and make it easier. As Venkat talked about, how do we simplify for our clients their experience of filing tax returns? They do not want to be in the nitty-gritty details. And that's where I think the whole tax industry, the service provider industry is striving at. We have technology evolution taking place, apps being developed, on the narrative that Venkat gave as he was talking, I was already picturing our app we have called Tax Chat, where we are going to individual tax payers and giving them a very simple solution. You download an app and you answer certain questions, and your return gets completed. You don't worry about the form, you don't worry about where the numbers go, you answer and provide information. And that simplification is the journey that we are undertaking. Now, easier said than done. There's a complex web of taxes. UK, as Daljit said, has been on this making tax digital journey for a while. And if I break it down, there are 3 or 4 categories of taxes. Indirect taxes, VAT, individual taxes, corporate taxes. I think the digital journey is quite underway when it comes to indirect tax, VAT experience. We have, as service providers, enabled for our users and businesses tools to centralize and reduce cost and make experience as streamlined as possible, but still a lot to do. Individual taxes for simple tax return filers, which are the majority of folks, we are on the same journey. Corporate tax return, on the flip side, can be very complex, especially if you have a multinational company headquartered in India or United States with global operations. So that journey will take us a bit, and multiple countries collaboration, tax laws, different forms, different tools and software. But in the end, to answer your question in a succinct manner, businesses are looking for simplification, lower costs to get the tax returns done and accurately done and mitigate risk. So best quality, fastest speed, cheapest cost, and least risk. So those are the areas I think our users want in whichever category you look at.
Accurate, fast, concise, simple. Those are very good words. So let's come back to the government perspective. I wonder what the next steps are for both governments. And Dr. Ajay, let's start with you.
Yes. In fact, the next steps would be to build upon what has been done. For example, uh, in case of a GST, the GST is going through the series of further reforms where the taxpayers' convenience and particularly the in terms of filing of the invoice generation would be one area where the businesses should be able to generate invoices online, and so that they don't have to file return. Similarly, on the direct tax side, the what India had embarked upon a very, very simplified tax filing return system, the return filing system. And that is something which is being achieved in stages. And in fact, the Venkat, represents Infosys. The government has been working very, very closely with them, and there, this the ultimate convenience of the taxpayers in the sense that they should be able to, the returns should get generated based on the information or the transactions which have happened. And I'll give you an example. For example, let us say uh, the GST returns gets filed every month, whereas the corporate tax returns get filed every year, and then the advanced tax gets paid every quarter. Now, can we do something to so that entire process could be automated as much as possible? Because that based on the information that we get, and then the pre-filling that the Venkat talked about, and what we are also trying to do is that if the income tax returns based on the questions that you answer, in addition to that, the information that you get from the various sources. For example, if I have a, let's say, if I have some fixed deposit in the banks, and the banks are giving me the interest, or I have invested some money in some corporates and they are giving me the dividend. Now, along with this dividend or the interest, those informations are coming, have started coming to the income tax department. And supposing if those informations can be pre-filled, and based on that, the tax can get calculated. Similarly, the salary, today, the people get the salary, and then those informations also come to the income tax department. And what earlier used to happen is that even if those informations were with the department, the individual taxpayer had to also fill in the information and to verify, and independently verify. What we are trying to do is that information which is coming from the diverse sources, they should get pre-filled, and the taxpayer only has to confirm. So this is what we are taking it to more and more areas. We have covered certain areas so far, like the interest or the dividend or the salary. But now we are thinking of moving towards the capital gain and so and so. Similarly, for the corporate income tax, those things will be a little more complicated. In fact, Ashu Rathor has mentioned that those things would be complicated, but this is what something will have to be, we will try to do that. And plus this entire data analytics, if we are getting a data from such wide sources, and in case supposing somewhere either the persons are not filing returns or they are understating their income, then those information should get highlighted to the taxpayer, saying that yes, you made certain investments, you have got a capital gain of a few million rupees, and then you are supposed to pay advance tax, you have not paid advance tax. So this kind of a reminders also could get generated, so that all these the persons know that the department knows about their transactions, and therefore they will be more inclined to file the tax return in time and also in the right manner.
Thank you. So, Daljit, you are going to round us up here today. So you've already mentioned the challenges around online, cloud, decentralization, potential of the blockchain. What's the next step now for you?
Well, look, really, everybody's expressed what I'm about to say. We all face similar challenges. It's all about usability and creating a more engaging tax platform, simpler tax platform. It starts with really making better use of the information that you have, using it in a way to enhance the experiences customers have when they come to do their tax affairs, and then going beyond that to also using third-party data, making most of things like the open banking initiative and other third-party data sources to augment what you have, and start to create that sort of almost like a single view for a citizen, rather than having to do with different taxes using different forms, etc., to have it all in some form of a dashboard type of construct. So that's where we are. I mean, and I think everybody else has said the same thing. Really, it's all about that simplification, making it easier to use, and we start by really making more sense out of the information that we have.
Making more sense out of the information we have. Thank you very much for joining me here on stage and in our virtual stage. Daljit Rehal. We've also had the former Finance Secretary from the Government of India. Thank you, Dr. Ajay Bhushan Pandey. Thank you to Venkat Narayan from Infosys and to EY's Ashu Rathor.